Good morning. Many Connecticut workers who haven't been paid while out sick or out taking care of a sick family member will now be able to take those days off and get paid. That's because of a bill the governor signed into law last week. Joining me this morning here in Studio A to explain how it works and when it goes into effect is Democratic State Senator Julie Kushner of the 24th District. She's also Deputy President Pro Tem. Welcome.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for being here. I know this was a bill that you were very involved in for a long time. We had a paid sick leave bill a little more than a decade ago that made some changes, and now there's a second change. So tell us where we are and what's changing.
So in 2011, we passed a bill, and we were one of the first states in the country to pass a paid sick days bill that required about 12% of our employees in the state their employers had to provide them with paid sick days. But it was very limited in scope in how many people qualified for that. So we've been working on updating this bill. Other states have now passed us in terms of the benefits that they require employers to provide in this area. So we wanted to not only catch up, but make sure we were taking care of the workers in our state.
And the big change here is going to be the size of employer. It's going to be phased in, but that's the big trigger here, is how many employees you have?
That's the biggest trigger. And so what that means is that by 2027, virtually every employee in Connecticut will be entitled to paid sick days. It's phased in over 3 years. So we're starting right now. We're reducing from the previous bill was 50 employees or more. Now we are going to have 25 employees or more. The employer must provide you with paid sick days, and that will start January 1st, 2025.
Now, when that comes into play, let's talk first about the effects. I know the big thing that you want to talk about is the effects on the employees, but a lot of employers are saying, Senator Kushner, hold on a second, what does this mean for me? Will there be reporting, tracking? What will they have to do for the state to make sure they're complying?
Well, they will have to report hours and track the sick hours that are used. But, you know, employers today already have to track a lot of information, both for the IRS and for the State Department of Revenue Services. And so I think that this will be an add-on that won't be that difficult for most employers.
I know labor and labor issues is your thing. You have a background with United Auto Workers, with labor unions. You've got, looking at your bio, it's clear this is the thing that's important to you. This particular issue, you've been shepherding this for a number of years. Why this issue? Why is it so important?
Well, for my whole life, I've seen that workers struggle when they don't have paid time off to take care of their family members or to take care of themselves. And we worked really hard to create what is an incredible program in Connecticut, the Paid Family Medical Leave Program. But that really covers you for very serious illnesses, or if you're adopting or a child or having a baby. Much of the regular sickness that people have, whether it's the flu, the cold, whether you have to stay home because you're isolating because of COVID, all of those kinds of absences from work are not covered by the Paid Family Medical Leave Program. So this is really like filling in the donut hole that workers get caught in. And when they don't have paid time off, when they don't have their job guaranteed, they tend to go to work sick or send a kid to school sick. And that's really not good for public health for other children. So this is a really important change that we're making in the state.
There are people who have criticized this proposal as government overreach and the government meddling in things they shouldn't be. That, a certain employer might only have 2 employees, and therefore, even when it eventually gets to that level, they'll be affected by this. But stay out of my business, I'm so small. What do you say to those people? Because certainly, I understand you support the general proposition, but there's got to be cases where it actually would be a burden and maybe it doesn't make sense. So is it when you paint with broad brushes that happens?
I don't think so. When you look at the laws that we have on the books for employers and for workers, we legislate all the time. There has to be a minimum wage. We set standards for workers' comp. So there are many ways in which we're making sure as a government, as a state, that employees are treated right on the job. And I think that everyone's sort of become aware of the fact that part of taking care of workers in our state is making sure that they have job protection and paid time off when they need it to care for their loved ones or themselves. And no one should have to worry about whether they're going to make be able to pay rent if they have to take off a day sick because it's not paid. So this is something that I think is, really about being responsible as a state and asking our employers to be responsible as well.
You talked about, and we've mentioned it in what we've said as well, that it's not just if you're sick, there's other reasons. And that's part of this bill as well, sort of expanding the, I guess, reasons. I don't know if there's a more scientific term than that, why you can use it, right? Is that a big part of this?
So we've expanded the reasons a person can use the sick days, but also who you can use them for. So the definition of family has been expanded, and now it matches what we have under the Paid Family Medical Leave Act, which I think will make it a little easier for employers because now there's one standard of how do we define families, and it's a broad definition to really understand the current family relationships that maybe aren't as traditional as they used to be.
Now I know your office sent us some information that after the 2011 law, the support was there that wasn't expected. People came and said this is going to ruin everything, and then that's not what was seen. Dave Fleming from the Yankee Institute, who I know has very different ideological views than you, wrote in the Connecticut Mirror, are citing a 2024 Hartford Business Journal survey saying 2/3 of employers are against this. What do you say to that? He says there's going to be unintended consequences.
Well, I find that very hard to believe because I think more than 2/3 of employers in our state are already doing the right thing. We know that the figure is somewhere between 85% and 90% of the employers in Connecticut already provide this benefit to their workers. And so if it was such a hardship, I don't think that we would see it being so prevalent. Really, this is geared to make sure that we level the playing field for all employers, that if you're a small employer, like we have one in Danbury, a great new startup company, she provides paid sick days, but she's only got a few employees. She says this is a benefit she can afford. She can't afford to provide pension or to provide a very robust health care program, but this is a way for her to attract workers and retain workers. She'd like to see that playing field leveled with other small employers so that they're doing the same thing.
Only about 30 seconds left, but just tell us what's the first milestone, whether you're an employer or employee, that you should be watching for.
January 1st, 2025, employers with 25 workers or less need to provide their employees with up to 40 hours of paid sick days accrued at 30 hours. Every 30 hours worked, 1 hour off with pay.
All right, there you go. Senator Julie Kushner, thank you for being with us. And I know you've had a lot to do with this bill, and you knew all the details. So we came to the right lady. We appreciate it. Senator Kushner, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.